Does the bodyguard scream at the woman who irons his shirts? Who has inflicted a brown burn on his yellow shirt, purchased expensively from Yves Saint Laurent? A great brown burn just over the heart. Does the bodyguard's principal make conversation with the bodyguard as they wait for the light to change in the dull grey Citroën? With the second bodyguard who is driving? What is the tone? Has the bodyguard ever enjoyed a serious political discussion with his principal? Is the bodyguard frightened by black spray paint, tall letters ghostly at the edges, on this wall, on this wall? At what level of education did the bodyguard leave school? Is the bodyguard sufficiently well paid? Is the Citroën armoured? Is the Mercedes armoured? What is the best speed of the Mercedes? Can it equal that of a BMW? A BMW motorcycle? Several BMW motorcycles. Does the bodyguard gauge the importance of his principal in terms of the number of bodyguards he requires? Should there not be other cars leading and following his principal's car, these also filled with bodyguards? Are there sometimes such additional precautions? And does the bodyguard at these times feel himself part of an ocean of bodyguards? Is he exalted at these times? After leaving technical school, in what sort of enterprises did the bodyguard engage before accepting his present post? Has he ever been in jail? For what sort of offence? Has the bodyguard acquired a fondness for his principal? Is there mutual respect? Is there mutual contempt? When his principal takes tea, is the bodyguard offered tea? Beer? Who pays? Is there a new bodyguard in the group of bodyguards? Why? What services does the bodyguard provide for his principal other than the primary one? Are there services he should not be asked to perform? Is he nevertheless asked from time to time to perform such services? Does he refuse? Can he refuse? Are there, in addition to the bodyguard's agreed-upon compensation, tips? Of what size? On what occasions? In the restaurant, a good table for his principal and the distinguished grey man with whom he is conferring. Before it, between the table with the two principals and the door, a table for the 4 bodyguards. What is the quality of the conversation between the two sets of bodyguards? What do they talk about? Has the bodyguard noticed the difference in quality between his suit and that of his principal? Between his shoes and those of his principal? In every part of the country, in large cities and small towns, bottles of champagne have been iced, put away, reserved for a celebration, reserved for a special day. Is the bodyguard aware of this? Is the bodyguard tired of waking in his small room on the Calle Caspe, smoking a Royal Filtre, then getting out of bed and throwing wide the curtains to discover, again, 8 people standing at the bus stop across the street in postures of depression? Is there on the wall of the bodyguard's small room a rosary made of apple beads hanging from a nail? Is there a mirror whose edges have begun to craze and flake? And are there small, blurrish Polaroids stuck along the left edge of the mirror, Polaroids of a woman in a dark blue scarf and 2 lean children in red pants? Is there a pair of dark blue trousers plus a long-sleeved white shirt worn once already hanging in the dark brown wardrobe? Is there a colour fold-out of a naked young woman torn from the magazine Veer, taped inside the wardrobe door? Does the bodyguard read the newspaper of his principal's party? Is he persuaded by what he reads there? Seated in a restaurant with his principal, the bodyguard is served, involuntarily, turtle soup. Does he recoil as the other eats? Why is this near skeleton, his principal, of such importance to the world that he deserves 6 bodyguards, 2 to a shift, with the shifts changing every 8 hours, 6 bodyguards of the first competence, plus supplementals on occasion, 2 armoured cars, stun grenades ready to hand under the front seat? What has he meant to the world? What are his plans? Those young men with dark beards staring at the Mercedes or staring at the Citroën, who are they? Does the bodyguard pay heed to the complaints of his fellow bodyguards about the hours spent waiting outside this or that ministry, this or that headquarters, hours spent propped against the fenders of the Mercedes while their principal is within the secure walls? Are his fellow bodyguards reliable? Is the new one reliable? Does the bodyguard feel that the situation is unfair? Will the son of the bodyguard, living with his mother in a faraway city, himself become a bodyguard? When the bodyguard delivers the son of his principal to the school where all of the children are delivered by bodyguards, does he stop at a grocer's on the way and buy the child a peach? Does he buy himself a peach? Will the bodyguard, if tested, be equal to his task? Does the bodyguard know which foreign concern was the successful bidder for the construction of his country's nuclear reprocessing plant? Does the bodyguard know which sections of the National Bank's half-yearly report on debt service have been falsified? Does the bodyguard know that the general amnesty of April coincided with the rearrest of 60 persons? Does the bodyguard know that the new liberalized press laws of May are a provocation? Does the bodyguard patronize a restaurant called The Crocodile, a place packed with young, loud, fat communists? Does he spill a drink to disclose his spite? Is his gesture understood? Are the streets full of stilt walkers? Stilt walkers, weaving 10 feet above the crowd in great papier-mâché bird heads, black and red costumes, whipping 30 feet of coloured cloth above the heads of the crowd, miming the rape of a young female personage symbolizing his country. In the Mercedes, the bodyguard and his colleague stare at the hundreds, men and women, young and old, who move around the Mercedes, stopped for a light, as if it were a rock in a river. In the rear seat, the patron is speaking into a telephone. He looks up, puts down the telephone. The people pressing around the car cannot be counted. There are too many of them. They cannot be known. There are too many of them. They cannot be predicted. They have volition. Then an opening. The car accelerates. Is it the case that on a certain morning, the garbage cans of the city, the garbage cans of the entire country, are overflowing with empty champagne bottles? Which bodyguard is at fault?